Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks. I
I
need you
already
to read
ordered
that.
it. Oh, I've already ordered it. I'm reading through her. Me and my friends are going through Bell Hooks right now because we're refuting. We're working on
What's
refuting
up,
all of her
people?
points. So I've ordered that. I've ordered Betty Friedan's Feminine Mystique. I'm going through
Wait, so
all the
you
feminist
ordered the
literature
book not to get a perspective and to understand, but to try to dispute it?
to do both, to understand and dispute where I disagree. That's how I read all my books. I'm doing the same thing to her that I did when I was doing when I was going through my religious studies.
Sure.
I'm looking at what I agree with, what I disagree with, where the facts are.
Well,
And
when
I've ordered her.
you
I've
get
ordered
the
for
aspect
Dan.
of as far as like disagreement and all this other stuff, come back and talk to me about it because I would love to debate on that.
100%. Yeah, I'm reading her. I'm reading Alice Walker. I'm reading for Dan.
Don't forget Angela Davis.
Yeah, I'm picking up. My friend has recommended that she recommended Davis too.
God.
So I'm going through all of that. I've got to be extremely well read before I come back to have these conversations.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'll give her this. There's some areas where there's absolutely. I absolutely agree with her on a lot of the foundational points that she makes. But the real areas is just how she extends her philosophy.
I think the most interesting thing that you'll find is not only with like bell hooks, but looking at like Angela Davis. And I know the type of like reverence you have for like these black leaders through like civil rights and all this other stuff. But like the position that these men took and how they like marginalized black women. One of the biggest things that I took from like Ain't I a Woman was how they had women during like the suffrage movement and everything. They had to fight a battle on two fronts, right? They had to fight a battle against white people, right? And then there was supposed to be like some solidarity with women when they were fighting for like this feminist movement. But when white women realized that black men were going to get certain rights that they didn't have, then they abandoned black women in lieu for like whiteness. And so then black women looked towards black men for that solidarity, and black men found solidarity in manhood instead of like blackness. And so black women were left on an island and ostracized and had to fight the front against, whiteness, white women, and black men all at the same time while being marginalized and especially in these like civil rights movements. They literally put the fight for like women's suffrage on the back burner for the fight for civil rights. And then once people or black people or black men specifically got the, ability to move forward, they never revisited, and they just continue to relegate black women to lesser than. The fact is that none of this shit would have happened without black women.
Well, yeah, I mean, Martin Luther King actually calls that out in the last book that he wrote,
and
as well as
used to be
Malcolm X in his message to the grassroots speech that he gave a little bit before he was assassinated. He mentioned the same thing, that there has not been the same equivalent amount of.
Used to be an asylum seeker, and I had a valid case. Many people were offensive to me. Not surprising. People do not like asylum seekers just in the U.S.
And so there's a lot of overlap from those two main, of course, civil rights icons, but everyone else they did. They undergirded the work of black women, and they didn't give them a lot of credit. Mahalia Jackson even talked about that at one point.
Yeah, but you also got to take a look at the way that, like, even
why though? I came from
praise black women. They still.
I think there's like a
think about like so I read Malcolm X autobiography.
There's an aspect of it that's
and how
I think just like is kind of like bigotry and stuff, and like fear of the unknown. And I think that's a big part of it. The only like semi-valid part of it, not for any given individual, to be clear. I don't think this is like valid for people to like hate an individual or whatever. But like, there's kind of a broader issue in the U.S. with what people call like quasi-legal immigration, because the asylum system and such. Which is kind of like you had like the legal right to like make an asylum claim, right, or whatever, and you still do. It's just that Trump doesn't like actually giving people that right. So the issue was it was just pretty easy to come to the border and claim asylum, which was like technically legal, and then like you're technically here awaiting asylum legally, but that got conflated with illegal immigration a ton.
I know.
People just did not.
I'm not saying that she was.
People just like did not like it.
If you look at the actual reverence That's the
and I can understand why people don't like that system of immigration. But yeah, I think a lot of it, it's just bigotry for.
We need to circle back around.
We'll debate that. We'll debate that when I finish the book. We'll debate that later.
All right. All right, guys. Only requests up if you're a Trump supporter or disagree with anything on the background. We're only looking for some debates. Only requests up if you are a Trump supporter or disagree with anything on the background. We're only looking for some debates. If you're friendly, tap the screen, share the live, send your daily FYP.
What's up, brother?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good. So, guys, is it non-fawn? Is that
non-fawn? Yeah.
Non-fawn. Non-fawn actually reached out to me after I ended up debating with David on his live. A week or so ago. Anyway, he actually reached out and said that he had a couple of point of contentions around some of the stuff that I debated David on, and he wanted to come through and debate me on it. So that's where we are. We're gonna get into some debates to see where we go from there. Let me say some quick thank yous really quickly, and then we'll get into it. First and foremost, W's in the chat for Janetta. Janetta sent the $1 donation. Next week, actually, Janetta, don't worry, I got you. I promise you, I will have that updated soon. W's in the chat for Janetta. W's in the chat for Just Devin for the $2 super chat. Yeah, no, listen, he doesn't know shit, but that's indicative of like not only MAGA but Blaga specifically. They're just here to be tokenized, and as long as he can be tokenized, then that's his functionality. So, W's in the chat for Farsi for the $2 donation. Oh, okay. Yeah, no. Like, I don't understand how anyone does as well, but like if you look at the amount of violence from the right, like domestic terrorists is prevalent within Christian nationalists. So like it's a whole thing. W's in the chat for Christine for the $1 donation. I ordered the candle off of Amazon. This one is raspberry, strawberry, and vanilla. I like to burn candles as I'm in the office debating. W's in the chat. Thank you so much for that. Over on YouTube, W's in the chat for JP, who's been a YouTube membership subscriber for a month. They said, Maggots got hurt that you made Tatum prove
in my chat,
he was a professional clown.
Where are my W's?
That's why they're so butthurt this morning. W's in the chat as well for Dose, who sent a $9.99 super chat. Say good morning. We find your schema sexy chocolate thunder. I know that's right. I saw a short of that Jubilee video, and I can tell it's going to be pure rage bait. Can't wait to see it. It just came out yesterday. I think it's like it hasn't even been out for 24 hours yet, and it's at like 500,000 views. Yeah, we put in work. And W's in the chat for Rebel for the $2 donation with the rainbows. W's in the chat. Again, if anyone else would like to support the live, you can do so. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Pay links in the link tree in the bio. Santana Speaks for You. Santana Speaks for You is the best way to support the live. If you're over on YouTube, you can send a super chat, and I will read that out. Only request up if you're a Trump supporter or disagree with anything on the background. We're only looking for some debates. If you're friendly, tap the screen, share the live. Knock out the daily gift goal. Make sure you send your daily heart me, and yeah. All right, perfect. The floor is yours. What points do you disagree with that you wanted to get into?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of things you said about the sort of the current state of capitalism or the current state of the well-being of Americans that I think are just not true. So, for example, I think it's not the case that like poverty has increased in the U.S. I think poverty has continued to go down, and part of that is due to like the welfare state and such. A non-significant portion, I would say. That's why I do support the welfare state. Things like the minimum wage hasn't kept up with the cost of living or whatever. Some of that stuff falls into like technically true, but like just paint a misleading picture because less and less Americans make the minimum wage, and overall just the median income has kept up with inflation. So, and the points about like wealth disparities and such, I think the evidence on like wealth inequality and stuff. First of all, it's not the case that like there's just been an ever increasing massive amount of inequality in the U.S. I think it's pretty contentious. There's some economists, David Splinter and Jared Austin, who have some good work about income inequality, and as well as when you take Social Security into account for measures of wealth inequality, you actually don't even end up seeing an increase in wealth inequality in the U.S. over the last the few decades. So. All those things that I think are kind of misleading about the current state of capitalism or whatever. But then I also think just kind of generally we have reasons for thinking that capitalism and free markets perform better than a lot of social systems. And I'd be curious to, first of all, understand what exactly your model of socialism is and talk about what I might see the issues are with it.
All right, sure. I will give you my premise as far as like socialism, but I would really like to actually start with the contentions that you have with some of the stuff that I said. When people speak of socialism, people normally have three different lenses of socialism. The first lens that people think of when they think of socialism is governments that implement like socialist policy, social safety nets. That's something that you would refer to like with, Social Security or things like that, right? Leaning into universal health care, even UBI, those are socialist policies, while the governmental system still lives in a capitalistic society. The next portion that people tend to think of is the definition of the word, right? Which is where the workers own the means of production, right? So like that's a thing. But the actual form of socialism, which is truly what socialism is, and what I'm talking about is socialism running parallel with communism, right? The premise of having the ability to shift the entire living conditions of the proletariat that would overwhelmingly benefit all people versus the small minority. And so that's the form that I'm speaking of when I say is better and more equipped than capitalism. But the reason why I say that is not only because socialism would give everyone a floor in which no one is living in these massive disparities, but it eliminates people being able to hoard the actual resources that are like centered around like people who have access to wealth and things like that. But so just giving you like where I stand and what I think of, but let's talk about the contingents of the things that you said. I said when you talked about like the poverty increasing within the U.S., you talked about the the federal minimum wage versus inflation, and then you talked about the wealth inequality. So the first point that I kind of want to start at, and just to get a better understanding from you, is understanding do you think that capitalism is beneficial to the whole of the American people?
So on net, yes, I obviously recognize that like there are going to be some in any system. There's going to be some people worse off than in some counterfactual system. But on net, I think it's good overall. And just more specifically, I think that poverty has fallen by the supplemental poverty measure by the.
Why? You said on net overall. You say yes, but I'm saying why?
Yeah, so I think generally capitalism in some system of free markets just leads to an efficient allocation of labor and capital that tend to lead to economic growth. And this is a pretty consistent pattern you see across capitalist countries. There's a lot of empirical evidence about the relationship between economic freedom and growth. There seems to be a pretty strong relationship there. And growth overall tends to help everybody, even those who like are not directly working themselves in the growing sector or whatever. It seems that it does increase the quality of life, that increasing productivity does mean people consume more while working the same amount of time.
Okay. And just to make sure that we're speaking the same language as well, you are talking about like how capitalism actually exists in our current society, not the way that it exists on paper and textbooks, right?
I mean, yeah.
Okay. Because I want to make sure you understand that, because I understand Just like with any theory, we could talk economics, we can talk about how things are supposed to work and what is supposed to happen and how things are supposed to happen. But I think the bigger thing is looking at how the things are actually occurring in our society today. So, all right, following up on that question then, if capitalism overall benefits everyday Americans, then why is it that we live in the richest country on earth? We have the highest GDP, but while doing so, we have the largest wealth disparities, while also having average Americans unable to sustain a $500 unexpected expense without meeting some type of insecurities, whether it be loss of housing or things along those lines.
Yeah, so I'd be curious what the source is for the largest wealth disparities claims, as well as the $500 emergency expense claim. I'm familiar with the 50% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency expense, because people cite that a lot. It's from the Federal Reserve Household Survey. But I think that's kind of misleading, because that's only the number of people who wouldn't be able to cover it immediately with cash, and then some other people would just need to, for example, put it on a credit card or something, like it does, which doesn't necessarily indicate like the most extreme financial duress or anything, even if you think it's not ideal. And that number has been trending downwards over time. It's been on a pretty consistent downward trend. 54% of Americans from that same survey have 3 months of emergency savings saved up. So, there's that. With regards to the wealth inequality,
hold on 1 second, because I want to take a look at your actual. You said it's on a downward trend. We're going to take a look at that. But do you want my sources first, or do you want me to pull up the sources that you're referring to, saying that this is actually on a downward trend?
We can look at yours first, but
sure. The wealth disparity coming from the wealth disparity comes from and I might have misstated this, it's from G7 countries, right? That's what I'm referring to. Because I don't compare like apples to oranges. I'm not going to compare the US to like some small country in Russia. Some small area or whatever. Anyway, so 1 second here. Let me get this up.
Well, it's not surprising we have more wealth inequality than a lot of European countries. It's not surprising that we have a lot of more wealth inequality than many European countries. But I think people still overstate its significance.
What do you mean they overstate it?
As in, a lot of people think it has grown more than I think it is fair to say it has grown. And I think that people overestimate its effects when it's just not clear from the evidence we have that its effects are like substantially negative.
Wait, so you're saying that the wealth gap that we have within the United States of America, even though it has grown, it's not negatively impacting?
So I don't think the evidence is clear that the effects are substantially negative. So, for example, people will claim that like wealth inequality is eroding democracy or whatever, and it just seems like the empirical evidence does not support that conclusion very well.
Wait, what empirical? I'm sorry. What is the fact that CPI is outpacing the median income in the United States of America? The fact that people are making more in our country today, but paying more than they ever have, so they have less disposable income.
So I don't think that's empirically true. I think just median disposable income.
Wait, you don't understand what point is empirical? You don't believe what's the fact that
that the median income
consumer prices are outpacing the median wage?
Over what time period?
Okay. Give me a second.
Over what
the study that I was talking about, let me just give you this and then I'll pull up the other one. The study I was talking about is the Pew Research Center that completed the actual look at 6 facts about the economic inequalities within the United States. It was also backed up by inequity.org, talking about the wealth inequity. And so you could take a look at those two if you want to, but I'm going to pull up the CPI. This is recent, where this has been a big thing Are you denying that that's a thing, or are you saying that it's just
I think
short?
during
I'm trying to make sure I
so I think during COVID there were like 2 years where real median personal income or whatever didn't outpace inflation, in like 2022 and 2020 or 2021 and 2022, I believe. But other than that, it's been on a pretty steady upward trend. And I think it's not a lot of the things that tell you otherwise, I think, are doing kind of unfair comparisons where they're using CPI, which is like the highest estimate of inflation. Essentially, there's a pretty strong argument to be made that it actually overstates inflation, and just comparing it to hourly wages when most workers' compensation or big increases in non-wage compensation have occurred over the last few decades, right? Workers get a lot more in health insurance now. They get a lot more in retirement contributions, things of that nature that I think are fairly
just
included
FYI,
as income.
this is from Pew Research. Have Americans' wages kept up with inflation? That depends. This is the study where they actually took a look at the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and they compared the actual increase in prices from 1995 until 2025. And there's multiple factors. They looked at like buying power and where the conditions rose. But when looking at the price index, it looks like there's been an 11% increase from 11 to 22%. And then taking a look at like the costs for like adjusted for inflation, you see that prices, depending on the different things that we're looking at, CPI, the main CPI increased about 93%, where CPI retroactive series increased 94%, and chain CPI increased 80%, and PCE increased 77%. And that's adjusting for inflation adjustment and adjusting for the time. So just looking at the actual overall amount of increase since 1999 until 2025, the shift as far as how much things cost versus how much how much the average family makes, it's not keeping up. They're outpacing.
So I think the mistake they're likely making there is that they are, again, just using CPI and comparing it to hourly wages, when CPI is going to give you the highest estimate of inflation, and they're probably...
That's not true.
What?
They're looking at different aspects of CPI, but they're also looking at different aspects that are listed within the Bureau of Labor and Statistics.
Who measure, I don't know what you mean by that, they measure a lot of things.
Yeah, they're looking at the actual wages and wage increase as well. So are you saying your issue is when talking about inflation, they're looking at CPI, or you want them to look at something else? Help me understand exactly what you're referring to.
Is that they're typically estimates that find like stagnating wages or whatever. They're using some of the highest estimates of inflation from CPI and some of the most narrow definitions of income, which exclude a lot of non-wage compensation and government transfers. So if you look at, for example,
where are you getting that from? Are you saying that's what you're assuming, or are you saying that's what you're seeing when you're looking at the study?
I'm getting that from because I've read I've read quite a bit of stuff about it. Okay, so if you look at,
but you're not looking directly at the study from the Pew Research Center. You're saying this is what you've seen in other instances.
If I look at the thing from Pew Research, am I going to see the exact same thing? I bet I am. You can tell me what to
well,
Google.
That's fine. I would much rather you pull up the source and then critique the source directly than saying, well, this is what you see in other instances. Like I'm so confused as far as why you would actually cite previous experiences when talking about this study. Like that's
because I can't have every source memorized at any given time, but I do know the general flaws.
I didn't actually memorize it. That's why I gave it to you, so you could pull it up and look at it.
Well, I'm just saying I can understand the general flaws in methodologies that tend to give you certain results. It's not clear, or it's not possible for me to just off the top of my head.
I mean, if you have an issue and a critique with the methodology that's used. But if you have a critique and the issue with the methodology used, I'm willing to hear it out, but I'm not willing to hear it out based off of you not looking at it and just like what you're saying that you've seen in general. That's silly.
Yeah, great. Okay, so Pew Research Center, what do you want me to look up? Facts about economic
Have American wages kept up with inflation? That depends. This was published on May 21st, 2026. you were critiquing the fact that they were using just CPI. And I told you there's different aspects of CPI, PCE, chain CPI, main CPI, and CPI retroactive series. And you're saying that, oh, like it's just this narrow scope. And like you were somehow making the determination that the methodology was flawed. I want to know specifically, as far as this study, where is the flaw in the methodology?
I'm guessing, as I've said, they are using
I don't care about
a narrow definition of income.
I don't care about
I have to go through and look at the
sure,
and look at it.
I don't care about a guess.
But I'm also I'm familiar like my own sources. Like you can look at work, for example, other than by the economist David
Splinter. A bunch
Splinter.
of random things about something that we're supposed to be talking about. I don't want you to like go on to something else or say, well, I've seen this and this. Like that's fine. I really, really like for you to be where your feet are. And right now your feet are right here.
Okay. I mean, I'm just saying, there's plenty of sources you can find that, I am familiar with off the top of my head that disagree with this.
Oh, that's fine. I don't care about what you're familiar with off the top of your head. You're critiquing the source that I brought. So like, let's talk about the source that I brought, not like a source that you want to critique that you've already looked at that I didn't say anything about.
Wait, what am I mean, this is saying, like there's a quote from it. The median wage's real buying power grew by 12.1%. What, like, using CPIU, the median weekly wage of $482 in December was equivalent to about $928 in December 2025. I would have found a median's wage real buying power increased by 12.1%. Like they're still finding that it's increasing. That it has kept up with inflation.
Wait, I never said that median wage wasn't increasing. I said CPI is outpacing them. But again, the issue that you stated that you had.
If CPI is outpacing it, how
hold on, I'm going to finish my
the median
sentence.
wage
I'm going to finish my sentence. The critique that you had was saying that they use a limited scope of just looking at CPI, and I'm saying, by what basis do you have that critique? Again, and I want you to make sure that you understand the claim that I'm making. I'm not making the claim that median wage hasn't increased, because that's not true. It has increased, but what it hasn't done is kept up for the increase to CPI due to inflation.
When this says
so that's what I'm referring to.
When this says real buying power, the median wage's real buying power grew by 12.1%. What do you think that means?
That the actual ability for people to purchase products increased.
In other words, adjusted for inflation, it grew by 12.1%.
Oh, okay.
Which means it outpaced inflation, right?
No.
What do you mean no? What do you mean no?
No. Hold on.
If it says the real buying power grew by 12.1%, that means the nominal increase.
So if you keep going, right? If you keep going and you take a look, let's see here. Not value companies timeline regardless. CPU.
Using the chain CPI, the median wages real buying power grew by 21
tends to produce
point.
higher inflation readings than other measures, and some economics have agreed that the overstate actual inflation. One criticism of the CPIU is slow reflection changes the consumer buying habits. For instance, if steak prices raise and consumers respond by switching by buying cheaper.
Yeah, I don't think you know what you're reading right now because this undermines your point. Yes, CPI has substitution bias, and CPI substitution biases inflation upwards.
Hey. I was in the middle of like reading off the information. But
I'm familiar with substitution bias in CPI. It undermines your point. Substitution bias means that CPI is okay.
I need you to slow down for a second and let me finish what I'm saying. Okay? I'm gonna send you a request to come off mute.
Okay, buddy.
You good? All right.
Sure.
All right. There we go. So, yes, there are actual substitutions that are put in place, which speaks to the fact that inflation is increasing and people are looking at alternatives to offset the additional costs. But that's not the only thing that's listed in here. that's not the only instance. That's why it looks at multiple aspects of CPI, not just CPI-U. And that's why I called out the fact that they look at the actual adjustment for main CPI, they look at the actual adjustment for PEC, chain CPI, and then the retroactive series.
Okay.
Right? And so when looking at the different aspects and looking at the overall increase, there's multiple factors that occur. But if you take a look at the shift, especially within since 2020, right? And when they take a look at the actual massive shifts prior to 2020 and then look at the shifts after 2020 and where we've gone, you've seen that all of these actual rates have overwhelmingly been outpaced. All right, the entire study looks at 1999 to 2025, but you see the massive shift starting in 2020, which, yes, COVID is a whole thing, but ever since then, it's been at a disproportionate rate. Just for example, prior to 2020, from 2015 to 2025, main CPI was actually at 8.1, and since then, since 2020, it's been at negative 3.2. Right. So while I agree that if you look at the entire time from 99 to 2025, you'll see that there has been growth that's been occurring. But ever since 2020, since we've been on the 6-year trend or whatever, well, I say 5 years because it counts for 2025, you've seen the actual inverse, and you've seen the massive negative impacts occurring with inflation and the cost of products.
Okay, so now, first of all, now it seems like we moderated the claim to, I guess, over the last 6 years has the median wage not outpaced inflation. But for one, I just want to be clear, CPI does have substitution bias that biases CPI's estimates upwards.
FYI, I just want to say I'm not shifting the claim. I told you that this looks at the actual data from 99 to 2025. But I'm telling you that if you take a look at the actual massive shift, it's occurred within the last 6 years.
Do you agree that over the whole time period, they find that the median wage has actually increased? The real median wage?
Yeah, I mean, again, I've never said that the median wage didn't increase.
Yeah, it sounded
tell me when I've ever said that
inflation adjusted.
Tell me when I've said that the median wage hasn't increased.
For example,
when did I make that statement?
when I read out to you this quote, over that span, the median wage's real buying power grew 12.1%. And I asked, do you think that means that the median wage outpaced inflation? And you said no.
Tell me when I said at any point that the point of me bringing this up was that median wage has not increased.
So when I read this quote that said the median wage's real buying power grew by 12.1%, and I asked, do you think this implies that it outpaced inflation? And you said no. That is you saying that you don't think the real median wage increased.
No, that's not. That's not.
Oh, okay.
Because I've been very clear with my claim from the very beginning. And just to reground my claim, the claim is that CPI is outpacing the real median wage.
What does real mean?
I've never said the real median wage is not increasing.
What does real mean?
I'm literally not done talking. So the point that I'm making is that, yes, if you take a look at the entire set, you see massive swings prior to 2020. But since 2020, you've seen the disparities really show itself. So you trying to pretend as if me calling out the no and the contradiction is not me being able to actually speak to the different points of time. I mean, I'm not talking about just that one lump for 99 to 2025. I'm talking about the different changes that we've seen historically versus what we're seeing recently. Like I literally started by saying, when you talk about economics, are we going to be talking about the actual way that it plays out within society today? So society today would mean currently, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what does
Did you just walk off, or what are we doing?
What does real mean?
Can you answer my question directly, or did you just walk off and not listen to anything that I said?
Yeah, I was grabbing a monster, a white monster. Okay, so I don't know exactly.
Can you
directly
engage with what I just said?
Yeah, so I guess we're talking about capitalism as it is today, as it is now. Okay, so what does real mean when someone says real median income?
Holy fuck. That's not engaging with what I said.
Okay, what am I not engaging with?
You like okay. Can you repeat to me what I said while you were walking off to get a white Monster energy drink?
Yeah, I heard something about, we need to talk about capitalism as it is today. That's why I started asking about this. You said that you never claim that the median wage isn't increasing, just that it's being outpaced by CPI, and that you've seen the real big shifts over the last 6 years.
Okay, would you like to respond to that at all?
Yeah, so I want to know what the word real means when someone says real median income.
Holy fuck. Okay, no worries. I got you. Let's put it on the screen. And then can you directly engage with what I'm actually saying? Because like you sitting here
answer my question?
I gave you the question first. I was in the middle of talking and you started spamming questions. I need you to lock the fuck in. Like, I'm not exactly sure what you think is happening right now, but you like just randomly spamming shit in the middle of me speaking and then pretending as if I'm not engaging with what you're saying. I'm not going to do that. Now, I got you. You want to know what the word real means?
Well, I know what it means. I want to know if you know what it means.
Yeah, that's fine. We're going to look up the word real. The word real, based off of Merriam-Webster, means there's 3 different points. Having objective independence, instance, not artificial, fraudulent, or illusionary. Also being precisely what the name implies.
Okay, so when people say real median income or real wages or real anything in economics, really, what they mean is adjusted for inflation. That's what it means. Mm-hmm. And that makes even more sense when you realize
I'm so confused as far as what point you think that you're making, because I've already said that if you take a look at the actual data from 1999 to 2025, you see that yes, there is an actual increase in the real median wage. But if you take a look at the disparities that have occurred since 2020, they're being outpaced. So the study looks at a large swath of time. But if we take a look at how this is actually showing up in our society today, you see the discrepancies. That's why I said, hey, I need you to make sure that you're dealing with how things are in society today and not just an overall economic premise. So the question I have for you is, if understanding that over the course of our country's history, what do we say, almost 30 years? Like, we'll just round it up, say almost 30 years. For the majority of time, this wasn't the case. But since 2020, we've seen this large disparities where the actual CPI has outpaced the median income. So how do you account for those things? And does that not speak to the fact that the society that we're currently living in is untenable for most Americans?
So first of all, if I just go to like Fred real quick and type in real median personal income, I think that did go down for like 2 years, or like in 2020, it went down. It actually was it was flat basically between 2020 and 2021, but then it started going up again. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that just, for the last 6 years, there's been no growth, or it's been outpaced or whatever. It started going up after 2022 again, and reached basically where it was in 2020 or 2019 by 2023.
Well, what question do you think you're answering right now?
So I think I'm responding to your point about the shifts over the last 6 years, society as it is right now. I'm saying society as it is right now is actually the real median personal income is bigger than it was in 2019 and 2020. So.
Give me a source that shows that for the last 6 years that CPI has not outpaced median income, because the actual information that we just looked at literally showed that.
Look up So first of all, no, it didn't, right? Because it literally
did,
says
but give me your
real.
source.
It literally says real buying powers increased by every measure of inflation.
Give me your source.
I'm just looking at Fred right now. Type in.
Yeah. Okay. So
type in
you're
Fred
looking
real
at
median
Fred.
personal income in the U.S.
Okay.
And this is adjusted with CPI, by the way. But I do think it has non-wage compensation in this, which some of the other sources don't.
Okay, so we're looking at just the real medium household income, the graph of Fred.
Well, I'm looking at
this
personal,
shows
but
us
household
looking-
works too, yeah.
I'm sorry, you're looking at what?
Personal. But household works too.
Oh, okay, why wouldn't we be looking at household? Why would we be looking at personal?
I mean, it doesn't matter that much to me, but I mean, household. I mean, you're gonna have potentially multiple income earners within it.
Yeah.
So you might when I say bias it upwards, that might not necessarily bias it upwards, but it's not gonna be measuring the same thing. But even household income, it looks like fell further, but it's still higher now than it was in 2019.
Again, I'm so confused as far as what you think I'm looking for. So yeah, I see that the actual, we're looking at Fred, we're looking at the actual dip that occurred. This goes from 2019 to 2024. Damn it, do they not have anything past 2024?
Not yet. I mean, you can look at other stuff that probably hasn't passed 2024, but.
Yeah, give me a second here. Let's see. Yeah, no, everything that I'm finding is for 2024. The only thing that's outside of that is...
Yeah, but they probably don't have the tax data they need it yet, actually.
And the only thing outside of that is the census, and I wouldn't actually lean on the census. Give me one more second, though.
Okay.
What is this? The Bureau of Labor and Statistics actually released some information.
I also just want to...
They talk about the actual... I'm going to talk about the information, but this is from the scope of just the income.
This is all, by the way, using CPIU. And I think it's funny that you literally read earlier about the substitution bias, right? You literally read the thing about consumers substituting between things. Do you understand that bias is the estimate of inflation upwards that makes CPI higher than it arguably should be?
Wait, you're saying the fact that people are substituting, it's making the actual inflation projections higher?
Well, the fact that CPI doesn't properly account for the substitution.
Okay.
Because it means people are buying, because it's still essentially measuring a big an increase in the price of goods that people aren't buying as much anymore, right? So it's overly weighting expensive things that people are substituting away from.
Right, but yes, they absolutely do say that that's an actual. This is a critique that economics have argued about the overstating of actual inflation of CPIU, right? But then this is why they actually look at more than just CPIU.
Yeah, which they all say has gone higher, right? So it starts by using CPIU.
No. I'm saying that
with CPIU.
I'm saying that you're sitting here critiquing the fact that it's just the CPIU, but I'm telling you they're looking at more than just the CPIU. Right.
Yeah.
So yes,
when they do
you
that,
can definitely talk
that,
about the actual substitution and what occurs when you look at switching out steak for chicken, but that's not the only measure that this study is actually looking at.
Yeah, but do you recognize when they use other measures, it goes up even more? So using chain CPI, it says the real median's wages, its buying power grew by 20.1%.
Yeah.
Like,
what they're looking at the personal consumption expenditure price index. They took a look at the measures from Fred, and they took a look at what else? Well, yeah, but again, that still doesn't actually negate the point as far as
using
what I was hoping that you were trying to.
Median wages, real buying power grew by 22.1%.
It doesn't negate. Hey. Again, I was still in the middle of speaking. That doesn't negate the point of the actual shift that we've seen within the last 6 years, right? Where inflation has outpaced every aspect. The growth, the uprise of CPI has outpaced the median income since 2020. So, like, even if I grant you that, again, I never said that overall this hasn't been a thing, but if I'm telling you that since 2020, we've seen these massive negative impacts, then why aren't we addressing how this is actually showing up in society today?
Right. So, for one, just can we agree now that the median wage has been outpacing inflation?
I would just love for you to answer my question directly. Hey, so, can you answer my question directly?
As I've said, so first of all, I think like these things are relevant over the long run because it's going to paint different perceptions, different understandings of the like history of capitalism or like how well it's performing, right? So I do think even the history is obviously like relevant to these points. But when it comes to
answer the question directly? I mean, you're doing a lot of talking and not a lot of actually answering the question.
I don't know what you expect my answer
Why
to be.
are we not accounting for the impacts that have occurred since 2020 to now, where we see these negative disparities with the actual price index rising, even though median income is continuing to rise? It's being outpaced.
So it's not my understanding that since 2020, there's just been a total stagnation of income, the median income compared to inflation. So,
no one said, you're making claims that no one said. When did I say that there's been total stagnation?
That seems to have been what precisely is your claim with regards to median income, real median income post 2020 then?
Since 2020, inflation has rose and CPI has outpaced the real median income since 2020. And even looking at the source,
wait.
That
so
we've
what
already,
you said just makes
we've
no
already
sense.
started to, how the fuck are you going to ask me to actually clarify it and then speak while I'm in the middle of speaking?
Because what you said just made no sense. So maybe you misspoke, but you just told me that.
Maybe if you listen to what I'm saying and let me finish my fucking sentence, then you'll get it. The claim that I'm stating, which is the overarching premise, is that CPI is outpacing medium income. CPI is outpacing medium income. And when you look at what the actual shifts have been since 2020, prior to 2020, I gave the specific example, main CPI from 2015 to 2025 was 8.1%. But since 2020 to 2025, main CPI has been negative 3.2%. So I want you to directly address the fact that since 2020, the actual negative impacts that have occurred where people are making money, but the cost of living is outpacing the increases in the amounts of money that they're making.
Okay, so it sounded like you misspoke earlier because you said that inflation has outpaced real median wages, which doesn't make sense.
I have not been saying
real
real median wages. I keep saying medium wages. Can you address what I said directly?
I'm about to.
What the fuck are you doing?
That's why I interrupted earlier.
You're really just gish galloping because you don't want to address the issue. Like, we've been going and doing this circle and dance for 15, 20 minutes now, and you still have not addressed the point that I've made over and over and over and over and over. Address the point directly.
Okay, so from the stuff I read, it is just empirically not the case that median income has not risen more than inflation over the past 6 years. It did.
Okay, what did you read?
At least by some measures.
What did you read?
For example, I've read work by Aaron Dube.
What did you
who talks
read?
A lot. For example, I've read work by Aaron Dube, who is a economist.
Okay, Aaron Dube. What's the actual source? Give me the actual source of what you read.
Go look up Aaron Dube, inflation inequality meets wage compression. And he's like a pretty progressive economist, by the way.
Inflation inequality, what?
Inflation inequality meets wage compression. And like here, you can see like a chart he has of real wage growth by decile between 2019
Wait, are you talking about his
2025.
Substack? You want me to read his Substack?
Yeah, he has a blog post with relevant data in it. But this is presenting. This is like the best you're gonna get because he's using like he's using not only CPI but distributional CPI, which shows like higher increases in inflation for people in the bottom 10%, and this is the absolute best data you're gonna get on this, right? Like this is when I say best data, best for your case. This is like the most progressive economist doing this. Like,
yeah, when you talk about the actual quote unquote most progressive economist that's doing this, I don't give a shit about that. I mean, like if you take a look at let's see, the National Library of Medicine. It talks about inflation and wage growth since the pandemic. It talks about the actual estimates, of the actual increase of 5% points, and then the 3% point boost to inflation and wage growth. It looks at the actual differences that have occurred throughout the United States and across the world, and it looks at more of the actual substance of when it comes to what's occurred through the growth since the pandemic, right? So, like, I hear what you're saying as far as the actual Substack that you want me to look at, but do you have anything that's not a Substack that we could look at?
For specifically since 2020, I'd have to go digging through my stuff. I'm sure some of these have stuff. I think the Substack is just what I remember off the top of my head because it's like the most. I use it in stuff like this because Aaron Dube's a pretty progressive economist. He disagrees with me on a lot of this stuff. I have a lot of disagreements with him.
Can you go grab a source that's not a Substack?
I mean, we can just look at Fred. Like, you can look at real median personal income.
Yeah, I mean, like, I hear you want us to just look at Fred, and I'm telling you that there's other actual economic. There's actual economic reviews. There's actual studies that have been completed. I mean, like, you just saying.
Believe it or not, they all have the same data as Fred.
That's fine. Hey, can you go grab me a source that's not a Substack, please and thank you.
Well, I gave you Fred.
I would really appreciate it if you could go grab me a source that's not a Substack, please and thank you.
I gave you Fred. I can give you.
Go grab a source that's not a Substack that makes the point that you're trying to make. All right.
Okay, Fred is not a Substack, right?
Okay. How about you give me an actual economic, credible economic review.
Fred is not a credible economic source.
Fred. No, I said of the data from Fred.
I don't know if I have anything on hand since 2020 about that.
Instead of talking, go do that. I'm going to say thank you to a couple of people, and then I'll come back to you. A second here. W's in chat for Lauren for the $1 donation. Lauren, I appreciate you. I appreciate the hell out of you. It was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. W's in the chat for Danella for the $1 donation. People have told me that as well, and I'm trying, but I'm kind of losing hope that it'll actually happen. So, W's in the chat for Nazir for the $5 donation. Oh, thank you so much. You said we're lucky you're into streaming. Thank you for all the good work. Thank you. I appreciate the hell out of you. That was in chat for Christine for the $1 donation. And people wonder why they're muted. Yeah, like, I mean, I think that they lack the ability to actually allow people to finish sentences. I think I've been pretty good faith as far as letting him speak, but for some reason, he has impulse control issues, but whatever. W's in the chat for Tona for the $1 super chat. Let's see here over on Twitch. Oh, that was last night. That's last night. We're all caught up. Guys, if anyone else likes to support the live, you can do so. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Pay links in the link tree in the bio. Santana Speaks for You. Santana Speaks for You is the best way to support the live. If you're over on YouTube, you can send a super chat, and I will read that out. Guys, only request up if you're a Trump supporter or disagree with anything on the background. We're only looking for some debates. Only request up if you are a Trump supporter or disagree with anything on the background. We're only looking for some debates. If you're friendly and you like to support the live, you can do so. Pay links and link tree in the bio. Keep tapping the screen. Let's go ahead and get the likes up. Let's get the likes up to 200,000 likes. Also, send your daily heart me if you have not done so. It's only one coin. It will boost the live and push us out to the FYP. This is interesting. Okay. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Were you able to get the information that we can look at?
I mean, I feel like I've given you enough. I think you can look at like this. The Fed survey has a little bit of stuff, but probably not exactly what you want.
I'm not understanding exactly what you're referring to.
The Federal Reserve Household Survey, I think, has a table.
No, I mean,
here.
like the statement that you just made seemed to actually, you kind of like petered off as far as what you were saying.
Oh, the Federal Reserve Household Survey, I think, has a measure of income growth in it. It's probably not exactly what you want, because I think it probably does not go past 2023.
Okay. How about this? How about we kind of get a little bit more focused within the actual things that have been outpaced, right? One thing that I think we can agree is that if people can't afford to eat, then like that's indicative of like capitalism not working because the cost of living is increasing exponentially. Is that fair to say?
So not exactly, right? Because you could imagine people struggling to be able to eat under capitalism, but it's still being preferable to some counterfactual system. And it clearly doesn't mean
well,
that...
we're not talking about other systems. We're talking about capitalism and how society works today. Can we agree that in the society that we currently live in, if there is an increase in people having a lack of ability to eat and actually even dying from that lack of ability to eat, then that speaks to the cost of living and the different factors that cause people to be unable to eat.
So not... just merely the fact that like people are not able to afford food is obviously like evidence of the fact that the price of food has gone up and like the cost of living has gone up. If that is all you mean, then sure. But I think you're in a bad position there, because it just seems like the percent of income that Americans spend on food has been trending downwards over time. And even since the pandemic, wages have outpaced the growth in food prices.
I didn't understand your answer. Can you try again, but answer directly to what I just said? I'm hoping that we can come to an understanding.
If your claim is only that an increase in food prices is evidence of like the cost of living increasing and certain people not being able to cope with that, then sure, I could recognize, obviously that's basically trivially true, but I think you're in a difficult position there just because the percentage of income people spend on food has gone down over time. And I believe even since the pandemic has gone down.
How am I in a predicament then? That doesn't make sense.
because that seemed to suggest that people's quality of lives and their ability to afford food has actually been getting better under capitalism. So,
wait, so them purchasing less food means that their life is getting better under capitalism?
No, not the percentage of income they spend on food, which does not necessarily mean less food, because their incomes overall can grow, right?
Yeah, I maybe you don't understand what I'm looking to actually baseline on. Can we agree that people dying from not being able to access food is indicative of a failure in our capitalistic society?
So when you say a failure, it is a bad outcome, right? And I don't believe that's intrinsic to capitalism, number one. And then I think in any system, there's going to be people worse off than in some counterfactual system. We have to talk about what's good on net.
Why are you talking about other systems? And I'm talking specifically about what
it's not very meaningful to me to say like this is
it's very meaningful if we're talking about our society today. I'm not talking about other ideal societies. I'm not talking about other countries. I'm talking about the United States of America. Can we agree in the United States of America, if people are dying because they don't have access to food, then that is a failure within our capitalistic society?
That is a failure. I don't believe it's intrinsic to capitalism. And I don't believe that...
Who said that it's intrinsic to capitalism? I'm talking about our capitalistic society. Why do you keep saying that?
Because I think it's relevant.
Trying to change my words?
I think it's relevant when discussing the merits of capitalism to say I recognize that capitalism can have bad outcomes, but
I'm talking about the way that capitalism exists in our society today. I've been very, very clear on that. I'm not talking about theory. I'm not talking about how it presents itself in other societies. I'm talking directly in our society today.
Mm-hmm.
So we can agree that people dying because they don't have access to food within our society, the United States of America, is a failure of the capitalistic society.
Yeah, under at least your conception of what failure means here, then sure, but that's not very meaningful to me at that point.
Okay, so people dying because they can't access food in the richest country on earth it means nothing to you.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying.
I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to do that. Goddamn. Okay, so if by failure,
that's what you just said.
No, so if by failure you only mean some like a bad outcome, and we're not comparing at all to any counterfactuals, or we're not talking about what systems overall are good on net. If that's all we're doing, then the failure there doesn't mean very much to me, is what I'm saying, because we're not actually comparing to what other systems would do or anything like that.
Why do we have to compare to other systems versus what we're doing? Why can't we compare to the capabilities of our society?
What do you mean?
Do you believe that our society is not indicative of people being able to, be able to have enough access to enough food? Are we in a food shortage within the United States of America where it's understandable that people could be dying for a lack of food?
No, I don't believe we're in a food shortage. And again, the percentage of income spent on food over time has gone down.
Okay, so if we're not in a food shortage, then the fact that people are dying to a lack of access to food while not being in a food shortage would be indicative of a failure in our capitalistic society.
I'm gonna repeat the same thing. You could say it's a failure, but if we're not thinking about the system as a whole, whether it's good on net, then the word failure there is just not very meaningful to me. And I also don't think how many people. They're not make sure many people actually dying because they can't afford food in the U.S.
Wait, sorry, because I didn't hear you said it's only what?
I said there's not many people literally dying because they can't afford food in the U.S. We do have welfare systems.
Why are you saying that? Have you looked it up?
I've seen some evidence about it. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. If you want to take a look at the National Library of Medicine, the PMC is
but that's just
125-42810.
but that's
It
just
talks
the
about the rising
malnutrition.
death due to. It talks about the rising death due to malnutrition and growing
crazy.
disparities.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar. Yes,
Can I finish my sentence? Can I finish my sentence? Hey, shut the fuck
I already
up.
know what you're citing. Okay.
I would love to be able to finish my sentence before you start. Well, no, I don't give a fuck about you trying to interrupt me. Let me finish my sentence. If you take a look at the actual information, it's rising death due to malnourishment and growth disparities in the United States. And this is a 24-year trend, an analysis from 1999 to 2023. And it talks about the actual growing health concerns within the United States. And it also has a prediction that says by 2030, 20% of Americans will be malnourished, right? And so it takes a look at the different aspects of the population, the different aspects within age, race, all of these other things. And it talks about the actual key indicator facts that are causing people to actually die from malnutrition, and then the actual projection course that we're currently still on. Now you can respond to what I was saying.
Yeah, so most of that is just because previously we used to, like, it's just on death certificates, write natural causes, like when someone was old and died of what we would consider like natural causes. Now, since 2010,
where are you getting that from?
Since I'm getting that from, I can get you a source here. I'm getting that from nutritioncare.org.
Oh, I thought you were critiquing the source that I was that I gave you, since you said you have already seen it.
Which is the number in there is mostly the massive increase of the people dying of malnutrition or whatever. It's mostly just the fact that we started writing malnutrition as like a contributing cause of death in the U.S. whenever someone was like.
So again, are you saying that that's listed in this PubMed information I just gave you, or are you saying that you have a separate source stating that?
I'm saying that, yeah, the data in there is presumably using the malnutrition deaths from.
Why presumably? Why not actually directly cite where it's saying that?
Okay, but because I'm not. So anything that shows a massive spike in the number of malnutrition deaths is like almost certainly using the data amongst that shows this massive spike in malnutrition deaths because we changed how we write on death certificates the cause of death that we write down.
You said that this changed when?
I think it was 2012.
Okay, cool. I'm glad to hear you say that. The actual spike started in 2013. So can you give me a source that actually speaks to what you're saying as far as like the classifications?
Yeah, I'm reading
because even
why
if you take a look at the actual
in
massive increase in the massive spikes within the United States of America, it started in 2013 and it's just dramatically increased since then. So how about a source?
So I'm looking at why are malnutrition deaths soaring in America? It's an article on nutritioncare.org. You should be able to find
nutritioncare.org. All right, give me a second. I'll pull it up.
And like there's some stuff here. Guidance for diagnosing malnutrition in the clinical setting was published in 2012 and has since been widely implemented.
One second. I don't want you reading it before I have it up in front of me so we can look at it together. Give me a second. You said malnutrition, or you said nutrition.org? What did you say?
Just look up why are malnutrition deaths soaring in America, and then
no, just tell me the source and the title, and I'll look it up directly.
That is the title. It's nutritioncare.org is the
nutritioncare.org.
But you're not going to be able to. I imagine it's hard just to go from the website to this exact PDF. But
and what's the title?
Why are malnutrition deaths soaring in America? And just to be clear, is your contention that the increase in malnutrition deaths represents people not being able to afford food? Just to be clear, that's your contention? Okay.
All right, I have the source up. Where are you reading from?
Just go to the bottom of the first page, and they have some like bullet points here. Guidance for diagnosing malnutrition in the clinical setting was published in 2012.
It's only one page for me. Hold on, I'll show you what I see because I only see one page. I might not be looking at exactly what you're looking at, but give me 1 second. I'm going to put it on the screen so you can see it. Is this what you're looking at?
Yeah, there should be a PDF you can click on. Somewhere. I bet there's probably a view full report thing. But no, those bullet points there, do you see the bullet point? Guidance for diagnosing malnutrition in clinical setting was published in 2012. Our understanding of malnutrition.
Okay, so we're looking at this page. Okay.
Has expanded.
Go ahead and read it off then.
Yeah, so this is saying in 2012, there was data published on diagnosing malnutrition. And since standard U.S. death certificates allow up to 4 lines for cause of deaths, we just started listing malnutrition as like a contributing cause of death post 2012. It does not actually, it does not like represent people like literally starving to death. It's just like a contributing cause of death for a lot of old people with like other underlying conditions. With the widespread use of electronic health records, listed underlying conditions such as malnutrition may also be making it to death certificates. Like these are the things. It's mostly most of the increase is also been in people 85 and older, I believe. So
wait, hold on. So yeah, this is saying that malnutrition is a contributing factor. So it may not be the only thing, but it's definitely saying that it's a contributing factor. When you talk about it says malnutrition is being related to inflammation in both acute and chronic disease, and food insecurity has expanded. Many professionals, including forensic pathologists, I'm sorry?
It says our understanding of malnutrition and food insecurity has expanded.
Okay.
The way I read that,
it's saying here
the way I read that is our
standard
definitions
U.S.
have broadened.
death certificate allows up to 4 lines for a cause of death that lists the subsequent of conditions leading to death. So this doesn't dispute that like malnutrition is an actual factor. This actually just says that in certain situations, they're giving the ability to list malnutrition as one of the factors leading to death.
Yeah, which is different than people starving to death, right? Wait. Us changing on how we write death certificates.
That doesn't dispute the fact that malnutrition is leading to people dying, because if you're malnourished and you are older and you have other chronic illnesses, then the fact that you're malnourished is going to exacerbate the additional conditions that you're facing, versus if you were not malnourished, then that wouldn't be like a catalyst for you dying.
Okay.
So,
first of all, this big increase in malnutrition deaths or whatever is just a result of us changing how we record it on death certificates. You're correct in that obviously being malnourished can be a contributing factor, right? But it doesn't mean it. But like people 85 and older with other chronic conditions being malnourished is not indicative of a lot of them not being able to afford food. It's indicative of like their body overall like shutting down. Like that's
no. You're just wrong. You're literally just wrong. This isn't even what your source says.
Malnourished doesn't even mean
your source says. Your source literally says is that it gives the ability for doctors to list more than one thing, and when having the ability to list more than one thing, they can actually talk about the multiple factors up to 4 that cause death. Right? It's not sitting here saying that, oh, well, it's just this that occurred because of this or whatever. That's not. It literally does not say that.
Okay, so, but beforehand, before this change, someone with dementia who basically forgot how to eat properly, forgot how to swallow. When they died,
you're giving me a hypothetical. Please don't give me a hypothetical. Give me something that directly proves that that's what it's saying, because this doesn't say that.
What do you think okay. So my contention is this source supports the notion that people are not like literally unable to afford food and starving. There are most of the people who have died of malnutrition, quote unquote, are just people who malnutrition was like a secondary condition or just a like contributing factor, not because they couldn't afford food, but just due overall to their health condition at the time.
Okay, so where are you getting that it's just a secondary? Because again, even the source that you gave me,
the fact that
even the source that you gave me doesn't say that. Even the source that you said doesn't state that.
I don't think it directly states that, but I think it clearly supports that belief. I can get you another source that probably directly states that. Like,
yeah, I mean, because you're making a claim that it's like, oh, people with Alzheimer's are forgetting to actually eat, and that's why they're dying.
I'm giving you an example of someone who previously would have been classified as just like dying of natural causes or dementia, but now it's going to have malnutrition as a factor there, even though it's not representative of them not being able to afford food, which was your claim. It's just indicative of now being able to include other factors on their death certificate.
And I'm telling you that source that you gave me doesn't say what you're saying. It says
wait,
that
hold
yes.
on. Do we concede that?
No, hold on. Did you see how I sat here quietly and let you finish your sentence? I'm saying that yes, it speaks to the fact that there was a spike since the ability to expand what's listed, and it talked about the other contributing factors that are connected with malnutrition that people are dying from. But it doesn't say that malnutrition is something that's caused by the other things. It like literally it says that you can identify these things. So you just sitting here, I'm not saying that, oh, there's not any cases of what you're saying being accurate, but what I am saying is that you trying to assert that it's all indicative of what you're saying. I think that's false, and I would love for you to actually source that.
Do you think the majority of it represents people literally not being able to afford food and literally like starving to death?
I would just like for you to actually source what you're saying as far as this being. I would just like for you to source what you made a statement saying that it's other things, and then the other things cause malnutrition. I just want you to prove that.
I'm asking your opinion. Do you think that it is the case that
you can have my opinion after you actually prove what you just said.
I can't get your opinion beforehand?
Nope. I would like for your source proving what you said.
Okay. So I think I'm making a claim. I think I provided evidence for that claim. Now I can go digging through some more sources to find something that exactly says that the majority of the increase
you didn't give evidence for your claim. You didn't. You didn't.
Okay.
Because your claim was literally that the only reason that we've seen this increase in people dying from malnutrition is because they changed the way that it could be categorized, and that's not true. Like literally, they expanded the actual options for you to list things up to 4 items. And so now you're saying, well, since they expanded it, then it's going to be something that's subsequent of another factor. Like you're literally saying that there's other things causing people to become now malnourished, and then they're listing on the actual cause of death that it's because they're malnourished.
So my claim, to be clear, is that it's not indicative of some sudden increase in people literally starving to death post-2012 because they can't afford food. It's mostly the result of how we changed our classifications for people who are who die, and us being able to, write like up to 4 causes. And I think I clearly provided evidence for that claim. If you want to say it's not sufficient, it's not sufficient to. If you want to say that the evidence I provided is not sufficient to know definitively whether or not
you literally didn't. Just because you actually give a source that says that there are more things that can be listed now within the actual death certificate does not say that this is the reason why there's been more malnutrition deaths.
Okay, so I think clearly when I say evidence, clearly it is something that increases the probability of it being the case that it is a big contributing factor, right? Clearly, the fact that they did change the standards for the death certificates and how often they can or list malnutrition as a contributing factor or whatever, that clearly is evidence of my claim. If you want to say it's not sufficient evidence to say that this is definitively the case, that most of the increase is not due to people starving to death, it's due to the factors I'm talking about, you can say that, but I think clearly it is evidence of my claim, and it seems to have been evidence that you weren't aware of before.
It's literally not. It's literally not. But fine, address this directly, like super directly. I need you to like pay attention to what I'm saying. This study provides a comprehensive analysis of malnutrition related to mortality trends in older adults in the United States from 1999 to 2023. The alarming resurgence in malnutrition-related death, particularly after 2013, underscores the critical need for targeted public health interventions. Significant disparities were noted, with higher rises in mortality amongst the white male in the age group of 65 to 74 and 85 plus. To address these challenges, structured interventions such as comprehensive gastrolic assessments, the CGA, have shown promise in reducing malnutrition risks and providing health outcome. By implementing gender-sensitive and culturally appropriate nutritional screenings and management strategies, healthcare systems can better meet the needs of this valuable population. Furthermore, addressing the social determinants of health, such as social isolation, economic insecurities, and the inadequate access to healthcare, is crucial to the mitigation of malnutrition amongst older adults. Enhance public health policies and regional efforts to increase or to recognize and manage malnutrition as a serious health problem, ensuring that older adults receive the support and care they need for healthy and dignified lives. The finding of the study serves as a call to action for healthcare providers, policymakers, and community leaders to prioritize malnutrition prevention and intervention for older adults, immediately aiming to improve their quality of life and reducing the mortality burden associated with malnutrition.
Okay, what part of that do you want me to address?
I want you to address the whole thing. This literally says that there are multiple factors that has caused the alarming increase, specifically in one demographic, but across the board. And there's multiple factors that need to be addressed, including CGIs, which are the comprehensive screenings. We need to address the actual social isolation issues that occur, the economic insecurities, and then the inadequate access to health care. All of these things are factors. All of these things are factors that are driving up the actual malnutrition deaths, and this doesn't say anything about like, oh, they change how you can list it, and so if we just stop listing it then it would drop.
The evidence I've seen is that it's not a resurgence, as the authors characterize it. It's been a consistent thing. It's just
what's the evidence that you've seen?
For example, I think I cited where the deaths, the malnutrition deaths spike right after we changed the standards with regards to death certificates. Seems like that's decent evidence of
what's the evidence that you've seen that what's the evidence that you've seen that contradicts the actual study that was completed by NIH? I'm sorry, that contradicts the National Library of Medicine.
Contradicts them on what specifically? On it being a resurgence?
Yeah, sure. A resurgence, and also the fact that it's directly attributed to the paperwork. Because your whole premise is that, oh, there's not a real problem. It's just the issue with paperwork.
Yeah. So the evidence, some of that evidence I've cited earlier, I think it's evidence of the death certificates being the main mechanism or the main reason why U.S. malnutrition deaths have spiked. So that's where my disagreements with. I would say there I would not characterize it as a resurgence. And then I think there's just other evidence on like the effects of like income and wealth inequality that don't support their notion of the need to address whatever economic inequities. And yeah, most of the empirical evidence, I think, is just against them on that.
Okay, so just FYI, right? This actual source that you gave is based off of what?
I don't know what you mean by that. Based off of what?
The source that you gave, right? Why are malnutrition deaths soaring in America? What is this based off of?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Based on the Center of Disease and Control Prevention, CDC database of death certificates, a fascinating Washington Post article by Andrews Van Dam titled "Why Are Malnutrition Deaths Soaring in America?" reported in a 6-fold increase in the United States, especially amongst 85 years and older. While it accounts for fewer than 1 in 100 deaths, the number is rising so quickly that now it matches deaths from arthrital disease, mental disorders,
Arterial.
and assault. Clinical nutrition professionals are likely familiar with the rise in the malnutrition diagnosis being around 2010, as research documenting impact expands the guidance of the nutrition assessment and diagnosis of clinical settings were published. However, Mr. Van Dam analysis of the rise of malnutrition as a cause of death is new information for the field. Analyzing the CDC data, he found that Americans 85 years or older die from malnutrition at about 60 times the rate of the rest of the population.
Okay, so isn't that in and of itself evidence of not people like literally starving to death? Why would it be the case that only 85-plus-year-olds like wouldn't be able to afford food?
I think you're missing what I'm saying here. Your actual source, right, that you're citing to be the way that they're categorizing it is literally a columnist for the Washington Post that's saying that he disagrees with the way that this is being categorized. And if you click on the actual article, he's talking about like what we're seeing in the different age groups. He's talking about like the actual what's happening within the agriculture department. But he's also saying, and
he's also saying, quote, "It doesn't look like our mental image of malnutrition, one which revolves around food banks and famine.
He's also saying,
for starters, it doesn't quite map onto economic hardship.
Before we declare this a closed case, we need to step back and put the numbers in context. Food insecurity amongst older Americans have risen 5% from 2011 to 2023. That's not a good number. Or one, you can just wave it off. But at the same time, it can't be explained a 746% increase in malnutrition deaths over that period."
That supports my point.
It says, yes. And then in parentheses it says, "And yes, we adjusted for the aging population." So we call the American Society of Parental and Internal Nutrition, known as ASPEN, for more descriptive and national intrusive nutrition and feeding tube experts. And there's been a sudden surge of malnutrition in older Americans, ASPEN's noted. So again, like the whole point of what this guy is saying in his article is not saying that, it's actually related to, people just changing the way that they're actually categorizing it. He's saying that he thinks there's more context to the data that's being listed. So
I don't understand. Okay.
Your source doesn't say that it's related to, I'm going to finish my sentence. Your source doesn't say that it's related to clerical errors.
It's not clerical errors. It's just a change in how we categorize stuff. But when he says food insecurity among older Americans has risen 5% from 2011 to 2023, that's not a good number or one you can just wave off. But at the same time, it doesn't explain a 740% increase in malnutrition deaths over that period. He's saying that, yes, food insecurity has gone up, but food insecurity is not the thing driving this big increase, right? That is what he's saying.
No, that's not what he said.
And he's saying
he literally didn't say that. He said no. He didn't say that. He said that there has to be more context. He didn't say that wasn't the thing. He said there has to be more context.
When he says that food insecurity doesn't explain it, he's saying that food insecurity actually does explain it. What do you mean? What?
We'll go back and I'll read it again.
Food insecurity among older Americans has risen 5% from 2011 to 2023. That's not a good number, or one you can just wave off. But at the same time, it can't explain it being food insecurity. When he says it can't explain, he's referring to food insecurity, right?
Before we declare that this is a closed case, we stepped back and put the numbers in context. Food insecurity amongst Americans has risen 5% from 2011 to 2023. That's not a good number. Or one you can just wave off. But at the same time, it can't explain a 746% increase in malnutrition deaths over that period. So he's saying that, yes, there has been an increase, but he's saying that he doesn't think that it actually explains what occurred.
What is it?
So this is the reason why he's saying that he reached out to Aspen and they started looking for additional context. So you sitting here pretending as if it's not that one, this doesn't say that. Two, you're still hanging on to the pretext that this is directly related to the change in like how they list things on death certificates. Where does it say that in this?
Okay.
In this article, where does it say that?
When he says he reached out to Aspen and it says if there had been a sudden surge
Can you answer my question?
I am answering it. It says
you're not. Where does it say in this article?
I'm reading it. I'm reading it. Among all Americans, Aspen would have noticed. He reached out, and what did Aspen say? Their best guess. Malnutrition quote has always been there. We're just identifying it and
to change how they list things on the birth certificate.
Okay, where it says malnutrition has always been there. We're just better at identifying and documenting it than we have been in the past. And when it says, but around 2010, researchers started accumulating evidence.
What part of the actual article are you looking at? Where?
So like one full paragraph below the thing you were just reading, when it says he reaches out to Aspen, it says, if there'd been a sudden surge in malnutrition among older Americans, Aspen would have noticed. Peter Gunter led clinical practice, quality, and advocacy at Aspen for 2 decades. Her best guess is simple. Malnutrition has always been there. We're just better at identifying it and documenting it than we have been in the past. And it says what happened in the past.
Wait.
Well, it has never been unusual for someone with a serious condition to lose weight.
Don't skim past that. Wait. Stop.
What?
Stop. Read what you just said again, because I wasn't there. I was trying to get back. Read that again. Read that whole part again.
Her best guess is simple. Malnutrition has always been there. We're just better at identifying it and documenting it than we ever have been in the past. That's her saying that it's a change of documentation.
Wait, your entire premise is that it wasn't really a thing. It's just they changed how they documented it.
Oh my God. It's not explained by people literally starving.
Wait. You said that it was just the fact that now they could classify it that way. But what you just read off says that it's always been there, but now they can better document
but there was a change
it.
In how they document it.
Hold on. Not negating that the thing has actually been happening, but highlighting the fact that the thing has been underreported.
Okay, your contention was that this represents people starving to death, right? Like literally can't afford food, starving to death. Mm-hmm. So when the author says food insecurity among older Americans has risen 5%, that's not a good number or one you can just wave off. But at the same time, it can't explain a 740% increase in malnutrition deaths over that period. What does the word "it" mean?
It means it's referring to the actual increase in deaths.
No, it's referring to food insecurity.
Yeah, food insecurity, sure.
Okay, so
I'm
let's substitute it in.
confused as far as what point you think you're trying to make.
Food insecurity can't explain a 746% increase in malnutrition deaths over that period. Isn't that my point?
Yeah, sure. Your point was
great
that they changed how they actually could categorize it. And since they changed how they could categorize it, that's the only reason that we see the spike.
My point is that it doesn't represent people
that. It literally just said
food.
that the actual change allowed people to properly identify it. But again, this isn't even a study. This is just someone critiquing the study that was completed by the CDC. What was the conclusion of this article?
I don't know what the conclusion of this article is, but to be clear, they are saying that something
you don't
changed.
know what the conclusion of the article that you gave as a source. You don't know what the conclusion was.
Not off the top of my head. What is it?
Go to the bottom.
I don't know. There's a bunch of quotes.
What is just read the bottom.
What?
How about this? How about this? Start at the paragraph that said, and that's our best guess. A better understanding of malnutrition means that it appeared on more medical charts, and from there, it occasionally makes its way into the death certificate, perhaps helped by a hired physician. Start from there and then just keep reading.
Oh, this is not like the bottom, but okay. But does that mean rising malnutrition deaths are a mirage? We didn't really expect Kurt Sofa to answer that question. The fine folks at the National Funeral Directories Association put us in touch with Sophie, I pronounce that, the director of Jenkins Funeral Homes of Salt Lake City, to answer a question about death certificates in Utah, the state with the highest rise in malnutrition deaths. But when he logged on Zoom, he saw she was on her phone. He was in the driver's seat of his vehicle, parked outside the retirement facility where he just dropped off his wife. Her 93-year-old father had just entered hospice. He said he'd been diagnosed. He's seen diagnoses like malnutrition on more and more death certificates, but all the time he spent with grieving family still didn't prepare him for reality. He was a robust, healthy man just a few months ago, and he's basically 120 pounds and nothing now. His father-in-law suffered a stroke. Doctors removed a blockage, but away from his beloved home in the even more beloved yard, he lost a desire to eat, which is my point.
Can you finish reading?
He told them everything tasted like sand. Wait, just to be clear, do you concede this is someone...
No. Don't wait. No.
Oh, my God.
Don't wait. Keep reading. After you finish this, then we can talk about it. Go.
You told him everything tasted like sand. We tried to boost protein drinks. We tried protein bars. We tried steak and potatoes. Wow, it seems like they can afford a lot of food. It reminded us of something we heard from Newport, the palliative care physician. One of the main ways we take care of people we love is to feed them, right? And it is so very distressing for caregivers to look towards their loved ones and see that they don't want to eat. We have to understand that in some situations, it's not something we can fix. We watched Sophie struggle with that conflict in real time. You could watch his mental changes, his physical change, his capacity to communicate change, and then just watch him decline by the millimeter. Sophie said, his voice heartbreaking. I've been a funeral service all my life and have been a caregiver all my life, born and raised in a building, and I found myself absent of words because I didn't know what even to say to my own father-in-law, who I knew was dying. There really isn't anything other to say than I love you and thank you. Sophie's father-in-law died about 12 hours later. Okay, do you concede that this is someone who could afford
So
food?
now the question I have for
do you concede
is
that this,
why did this actual article, instead of giving an empirical conclusion on whether or not there's an actual increase of malnutrition and people dying, why did this article end on an anecdotal experience, a story from one person?
Because it's a Washington Post article, and it's not like meant to be that formal of a thing or whatever, and people like attach to emotions.
But you cited this as a source to actually discredit the CDC study that I gave.
Even the antidote supports my point, which is that it's not someone who couldn't afford to. Yes, it does.
Why should we give a fuck about an antidote and your point when it doesn't critique the CDC study? Like literally, you use an actual opinion piece
by name.
You use an opinion piece to actually critique the study that was completed on malnutrition. That's why they didn't give any type of empirical data at the end. That's why they didn't give any type of final conclusion, because this was not about giving empirical data. This was literally about someone saying, well, I disagree. Like, that's literally what this was about. Your source to disprove the actual study that I gave was an opinion piece that ended with someone telling about their personal experience to say, I disagree.
First of all, they do cite empirical evidence earlier in the article, right? There is like actual data presented in the article. Second of all, obviously things can give you an understanding of stuff that without mentioning a specific study or anything by name. You can get an understanding. So why didn't they
end the actual article on like empirical data proving that this is not an issue?
Because it's a Washington Post article. Okay, it's not even in the opinion section. It's in the Department of Data section.
I hear what you're saying.
Regardless of that, but it's an article. People attach emotions.
The actual information that I gave. The actual information that I gave, that came from, like, again, it's on the National Library of Medicine, gave definitive statements at the end about what's causing this and how we address the actual issue.
This article has stuff in it
along with empirical data. So again,
this article has empirical data too.
You giving an article that actually criticizes the information because they don't believe it is not criticizing and proving that the actual study that was completed from 1999 to 2023 is invalid in any way. What up, Jeff?
Do you think it has to mention it by name in order for it to give you an understanding of stuff?
I said, what up, Jeff?
Yeah, yes, because you would expect that, right? Like, let's just get clear. I'll just stipulate that a person, you know what? I'll be generous. 5 people unalived from malnutrition due to being in hospice. Like, what? That's the, like, you're asking, or you're actually confused why the question would rest on why they cited an anecdote, and you're saying that helps your case? Do you think
they don't just cite an anecdote? They also cite data that shows that people over 85 years of age are 60 times more likely than any other group. Wait, that's not an anecdote, right? Oh my God.
Don't get excited. There's no need to get so riled up. So don't interrupt again. Okay. You said that the anecdote helps your case. I take that to mean that you think it's probability raising that if a person unalived from malnutrition in hospice, that raises the probability that the study that was cited is inadequate. I hope that's not what you're saying.
And in a technical sense, I think it it does. The antidote is probability raising for my belief, but I don't think. But
do you think? What do you think probability raising means?
As in, like, increases the probability of it being true. Like,
but do you think that if you went to anyone, let's just be honest for a second. If you went to any of the people that did the study on malnutrition and you asked them, do you think a person in any given year has unalived from malnutrition while in hospice, while having access to adequate food, what do you think they would say?
I would think they would agree that that's the case. I don't know what you mean.
So so it's not probability raising. They would factor that in as like one person.
But obviously, okay.
Okay, so
obviously, wait. If it wasn't, if no one in hospice care died because despite having like adequate access to food, right? Like, that'd be evidence of them being correct, right? So the fact that it's not the case is evidence of it not being correct.
Stop. No, it's not. Look,
yes, it is.
That's not how counterfactuals work. Number one. Number two, in a case where one person unaliving from hospice is consistent with people unaliving also from not having adequate access to food, it's a 50-50 proposition. If you add that one datum, one person, anecdote, this is why we don't do anecdotes in this kind of context. That one person is consistent with their hypothesis, correct?
It is consistent with their hypothesis.
Okay,
right?
So then
I never said one person.
Wait.
I never said one person is sufficient.
Stop. I don't want a timeshare sales pitch. That means it's a 50-50 proposition, so it's not probability raising. Let's go to the next data point.
Wait. Just to be clear. The reason. So he told me to read the conclusion of the article. I did, and the conclusion of the article supports my point. Okay, right? That's what I was saying. Is that the thing he told me to read supports my point?
Let's just do a.
But they also cite data.
The conclusion of the article doesn't prove your point because it gives an
I never said it proved my point.
experience from one person and how things actually occurred for them. You saying that, it seems like they can afford a lot of different types of food by like this one family stating that they tried different food for their actual loved one that was having issues with eating. Like that does not mean that it's indicative of everything that's happening. It's literally just a one-off experience. I'm sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
So I'm going to claim that alone.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Wait 1 second. I'm going to give you a parody scenario. If I was to make the claim that due to the rise in shark migration on the Pacific coast,
10 minutes, y'all.
There's an increase of people unaliving in the water due to shark attacks, right? And then you gave me one case where somebody off the coast of, say, San Francisco drowned because they didn't know how to swim. You're saying that would be probability raising for the fact that my assertion that a rise in shark attacks increased unalivings is wrong? Is that what you're saying?
But I think in a very autistic sense, it would technically be probability raising because, like, think about it. Like, if it wasn't the case that there were anyone dying from not knowing how to swim, like that would raise the probability of you being correct, right? But the fact that there is at least one case of someone.
Listen.
Okay.
If nobody drowned at all, it wouldn't raise the probability of me being correct or incorrect.
I'm saying from your or from the alternative explanation, right? I'm saying if nobody had drowned because they didn't know how to swim.
That doesn't follow. And the reason is because in the same way that if I saw an unidentified flying object, right, in the sky, and I said it's a UFO, and I came to you and said, what's your alternate explanation? And I said it's aliens, and I said, what's your alternate explanation? And you looked and you were like, well, there were no flights last night. That doesn't raise the probability that it's aliens.
Yes, it does. I mean, it
Yes,
rules
it
out
does.
like
I
think trivially it raised. Wait, not very much, but yes, it does.
I just want to get clear that you think that the fact that somebody didn't come up, let's say you didn't even have an alternate explanation, you didn't even know airplanes existed.
Wait, if there were flights, would it be evidence that it wasn't aliens? Because I think it would be, right?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely. Look, this is why we don't do anecdotes in this type of scenario.
But I don't even need to rely on anecdotes. He told me to read the read the anecdote. I never presented the anecdote. There's also data that says 85 years and there's also data that says people 85 years and older are 60 times more likely than any other group to die of malnutrition.
Let's go to.
He lacks impulse control, Jeff.
Let's go to the next data point. We're going one step at a time.
We can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. Let's go to the next data point. None. You said that people or elderly people unalive at 60 times the rate of the rest of the population. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what inference are you drawing from there to the methodology of this study?
Yeah, that food insecurity and people not and being able to afford food is unlikely to be the main driver of that, because it's unlikely to be the case that
China.
85 people 85 years and older are just like 60 times more likely to not be able to afford food. It's more likely to be the case that they're a lot more likely for other reasons to die of malnutrition.
Sounds like you're just restating the claim. Do you know what an inference would be?
So I don't know if I could give you the technical definition of the word inference, but I'm inferring that
it would just be a line of reasoning. So from the fact that elderly people unalive at 60 times the rate of the normal of the rest of the population, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are using that, right, to say that it's unlikely that the cause, like there's a cause inference in that sentence.
Yeah, it's unlikely the primary cause of that is that people 85 years and older are just
Let's just do this simple. What's the argument that from the sentence, people who are elderly unalive at a higher rate, let's make it 1,000 times higher than the rest of the population. What's the argument that you can infer any cause from that sentence?
Well, because you agree that it's more likely that something else is affecting 85-year-olds than just the fact that 85-year-olds would somehow be like uniquely susceptible to not being able to afford food compared to every other
From that sentence?
age group.
No, I don't agree. I'm looking.
Well,
for
there's also like background information I have. Obviously, like
I just
I agree. I agree without some background information on the human species and their biological
FYI,
limits.
Jeff, he makes a lot of assertions based off of other shit that he like disagrees with from other places, not necessarily the shit that you actually present. He often will
Thank you, Tesco Johnson.
cite
I appreciate
random
it.
things that he disagrees with that you never brought up, and so like that's what he's doing.
So Nan, I'm going to tell you something. I want you to present your best possible case in this conversation. By the way, Santana, the audiobook is done and up. But I want you to present your best case. When you ramble on like that, when there's a point of clarity to be made, the rest of the audience thinks used car salesman. Most of the people in this audience have been to a used car lot, and they've heard a guy with a smarmy smile go up to them and tell them that a little old lady drove this every Sunday. That's what you sound like. So I want you to stop going so fast and start going one step at a time. Okay, so far, we have one piece of data, one data point, which is, and you said it really eloquently, elderly people unalive, they die at a 60 times higher rate than the rest of the population. From that data point, you're thinking that you can draw an inference to a cause. I'm pretty sure that's false. Like I'm almost certain that's false. And now I'm asking you for the inference. Now, if you have an additional data point that you want to add that we can inspect and look at as true to add to the argument, let's go one data point at a time. What is the next data point that you want to add? Okay, so I'm speaking fast right now, okay? Because I got like 2 minutes before I got to leave to go to work. But I'm happy to keep talking with you, Jeff, or Santana another time. So I think that first of all, if you just have some background information on the human species and things like that, you can infer that it is the case that it's more likely people over 85 are going to be susceptible to malnutrition for other reasons than income level, right? I think. Okay. So that fact, I will stipulate, as I did at the beginning, that people die for many, many different reasons when they're elderly. That doesn't tell you anything about this study. Like, this is why it's not probability raising, because anybody would stipulate that older people die at a higher rate. That's just unfortunately what it means to get old. Like, eventually you have a higher probability of dying. So that doesn't tell you anything about the rate. Just the fact that somebody could die from a disease doesn't mean that they're dying at a certain rate at all. Wait, I'm sorry. You're saying that last part did not compute to me. Do you think anybody died last year after falling out of a window? Yes. Okay, so you've stipulated that. Okay. Do you think anybody died last year after getting hit by a car? Yeah. All right. Without looking at any additional data, now that you know that by your lights, those two things occur, which happened more? I mean, so if you're just saying based off these two data, you can't determine or which happened more. I agree from that alone. So your background information is now useless to me because yes, I do have background. But I do have background information that would lead me to suggest that probably more people died being hit by cars. I would guess that's the case. Okay, great, because there is rate information there. So look, I don't know why you're confused, and it seems like you don't want to provide the data. You know what I'm asking you when I ask for relevant data that shows that this information is incorrect. Look, let's get the easy one. What is your argument that a 5% increase in malnutrition won't lead to a 700% increase in malnutrition deaths?
Yeah, it seems like the relevant experts don't think it would. It seems like just
Which relevant expert? I don't think a journalist is a relevant expert.
okay.
That's something I've been trying. That's something I've been trying to highlight this whole time.
I would think the relevant experts are the people you're disagreeing with right now, but that's okay. And just so you know, I don't agree with relevant experts just on their bald assertions without an argument. Sorry, Sean, go ahead.
I just want to ask him something about the quote unquote relevant expert. Does this relevant expert say that malnutrition deaths aren't soaring in the United States?
Nope.
Oh my
I said
God.
that as well.
Wait,
No,
just to be
I'm
clear,
asking
Santana's contention was that this represents people literally not being able to afford food. That was Santana's contention. The author does disagree with that.
That is a correct assertion, but I just want to ask you the question. Does this relevant expert that you say that there is not a soaring of deaths for malnutrition in the United States?
Thanks for the 10 joules. Well, no, he doesn't disagree that just the data shows that, right? But we're talking about explanations for why it does.
Okay, excellent. I just want to ask a second question, and it's a super easy question. Are malnutrition deaths a form of starvation?
Okay, this seems very silly.
Are malnutrition deaths a form of starvation? It's a very simple question.
I don't think in what people understand starvation to be that most malnutrition deaths in the U.S. would fall into
starvation to be, but are they though?
The common understanding of starvation, I think, is...
I don't care about the common understanding. I want to know if it is or if it isn't.
I don't think it's fair to say it is, no.
Sean, he's going to keep dancing.
So you don't think that it is. Okay,
excellent.
So this is super easy. You don't think it is. That's all you had to say. You just had to say no. I want everyone to go look up if malnutrition deaths are a form of starvation. I just want everyone to look that up. And the first source that you'll get is the CDC, and it should say that malnutrition deaths are a form of starvation. They're just not identified as the same thing, meaning that they are the same thing. They're just called something different. Like it's the difference between biological death and clinical death. Like they're both death.
I think there's just an equivocation there between the common understanding of starvation and...
CDC, the people who can determine whether or not a person has died due to a specific thing, is doing an equivocation on how they classify a death.
Well, Sean, I'm going to push back on what you said because the first thing I got was the World Health Organization. Now, it says the same shit that you're saying, but it wasn't the CDC. So, like, I'm going to take that as a win for me because...
That's a fair enough. I got owned by Santana.
Real quick, I just
Sean W. Santana in the chat.
I just want to underscore this point. Hey, Nan, if there's a 5% increase in food insecurity, what does that mean?
So I think that means that like 5% or more people than last year or than whatever time you're comparing to reported that they, I forget the exact definition, but struggle to afford food on a regular basis or whatever the definition is.
Does it indicate types of food?
I don't believe so. I think it's just based on survey data.
So do you think that the type of food you eat contributes to your health?
Trivially, yeah.
He's going to get it real soon, guys. Okay, cool. So do you think if there's a 5% increase in food insecurity, does that also represent a potential slide down in the types of nutrition other people can afford? Like say somebody used to eat healthy meals with proteins and grains, and now they have to resort to eating fast food. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, but I think the empirical evidence on that is just really poor.
I'm just going to ask if that counts as food insecurity.
If what counts as food insecurity, sorry.
If somebody was eating healthy proteins and grains, and then because of a lack of income or a change in the price of goods, they had to now eat fast food, are they food insecure?
My understanding of the word food insecure is that wouldn't fall into the definition, but maybe.
Okay,
I don't know.
So that person wouldn't fall into the 5%.
Well, not the 5% increase, but...
Okay, great. So to your lights, right, older people would be more susceptible to having poor health outcomes due to change in nutrition of any kind, right?
Okay, listen, I like gotta
That's
go.
That's a yes or that's
okay.
a yes or a no.
We can keep
We're
talking later.
at
I
the
think
end
it's
of the-
vastly. I
look,
think it's
we're at the
vastly
end
more
of the-
likely that 85-year-olds
he
are
found
like.
it.
Yeah,
He found it. He
found
got to the
what?
conclusion, and now he wants to run.
That's
Just a-
awesome. That's not
just a
gonna.
yes
I think
or
it's
no.
vastly more likely that it's not income.
yes or-
even
you're just gonna-
even
look,
by that
A-Track.
standard, I don't think
Hey,
that supports
A-Track.
Santana's original point.
Hey,
but I think it's vastly
been
more
bad
likely.
faith this he's
That's
been
cool.
bad faith this entire time. Like
True.
he's so fucking disingenuous because he won't actually answer questions directly. He wants to run around and obfuscate. He wants to pretend that something that's being said isn't being said. Hey, can you answer Jeff's question directly? Jeff, maybe he didn't hear you. One more time. It's a yes or no. What's the question, Jeff?
By your lights, given that you said older people, to your admission, die at a much higher rate than the rest of the population, then it would follow that older people are more susceptible to things like lowering in nutrition value and would have poorer health outcomes because of it. Yes?
Yes, I think it's vastly more likely that it's primarily the result of a change in classifications than it is any fundamental
so
underlying thing.
here's
And
what
there's
we'll
evidence
do.
for that. There's evidence for that in the evidence we.
Shut the fuck up. Here's what we'll do.
There's,
The next time you
there's
and I
a lot of
speak-
empirical evidence for that, but like
That's good. That's good. You haven't presented any. So
I
the
gotta go,
next
like,
time-
now, like,
the
I'm gonna be
fact
late.
that
No,
you
he's just
talk-
like you running to yell as much random shit as you can doesn't like you.
'Cause I
What
gotta
the
go-
fuck do you
gotta
think
keep
that's
interrupting
doing?
me.
What do you think that's doing?
Nobody
Like you
believes
trying to
you.
spam random shit that does nothing.
Nan, do you notice how when I'm asking a question, I'm not like spamming every letter at you to
Hey,
try
I'm
to
worth your time to me.
jam
Okay, I
the
gotta go,
question
though.
through? That's your problem, right?
We
The
can talk
next
later,
time-
buddy.
If you and I, if
Jesus Christ. Okay, I gotta go, people. My God. My God. What are their sources? A bunch of random slop stuff. I don't know. I'll see if I can talk to them later. They're gonna accuse me of running and shit, but like I gotta go, folks. Jesus Christ. Oh my God, John Pork. Okay, see you guys later.